Good evening, everyone. Welcome to ThetaTalks. Today, I am joined with Sanaiyah, and we are going to explore something a little bit more deeper than what we discussed last time. So, those of you who joined us last time, we were talking about how emotions can cause sickness or illness within our body. So we spoke a little bit about how that happens and how our emotions can create these energies that are stuck within our physical body and hence create disease or illnesses or sicknesses. So we talked on a little bit of we talked a little bit about it through a more lighter perspective in terms of surface level illness. So this week, we're going to delve a little bit more deeper and we're going to explore cancer and how theta healing can help heal cancer, how theta healing can help individuals cope who do have cancer. And also, we tend to forget about the people who are in the situation where they are supporting their family or friends with cancer as well, because everybody needs healing, everybody needs support. So today we're going to explore more aspects and deeper aspects about illness and sickness, and specifically in that area. And nowadays, there's a lot of people who do have somebody you may know or somebody who's somebody's friend that is affected by cancer. So this will be a very interesting topic for us to explore regarding theta healing and how it can impact. So we talked about hello.
Hi, good evening.
Hi. So I was just filling everybody in on a little bit about what we talked about last week
Okay.
and how we're going to go much more deeper today into cancer, right? We're going to explore and
Big
talk
C,
about,
the big C.
yeah. So I
Yeah.
was just introducing how, theta healing can definitely help in any sickness and illness, especially cancer, and not only directly linked to it, because a lot of my sessions and work with cancer actually work around people who have had family members or who do have family members who are undergoing, treatment or going through cancer. So even in terms of supporting people who are affected that way through cancer, and I've also worked with people who have passed away, and their family members have come on over to work through the grief and kind of, being able to come to terms with it.
Yeah.
And also in terms of cancer survivors as well,
Right.
coming in and realizing that, hey, wait a minute, um, I now understand the link and why I, had this. And so now let me make sure it doesn't come back or make sure that I clean those aspects. So there are many levels to this topic that we're going to explore, not just does it or can it heal, because I know at this point we all kind of believe that it is possible, and we'll explore a little bit more of that,
Yeah.
but we can work with these angles as well.
Yeah. Yeah. You're right. As you were speaking, Maisha, I was thinking about, so if we talk about cancer, there are those who have cancer. There are those who have overcome cancer.
Yes.
There are those who are diagnosed with cancer and are not yet even at the stage of being able to accept
Hmm.
what they have. Then there are members of the family who have to watch
Go,
someone they love
go through
go
it. Yeah.
through cancer, and that brings up a lot of their own fears
Mm,
of losing that person, or even perhaps, you know, getting cancer,
yeah.
right? And then you've also got this whole genetic aspect of cancer, because so many cancers are genetically passed down. Breast cancer, for example, if there is history of breast cancer in the family, there is definitely a genetic tendency
Yeah.
for the people in the family to, they're high risk for cancer, for that cancer. So there's that aspect as well. So you're right, it's a very rich subject,
Mm.
and it is something very relevant for people today. And definitely Theta Healing became known because the founder of Theta Healing, Vienna Steibel, had bone cancer, right? And, you know, what put Theta Healing on the map, I think, in the world of healing was her story of how she had bone cancer. She should have died. You know, all the test results showed that the cancer was very, you know, far gone. And through Theta Healing, through the work she did, she was able to heal herself instantly from
Yeah.
cancer. And that was, I think, 30 or more years ago. And Vienna is healthy. You know, she's doing an incredible job of teaching people to be instructors of Theta Healing, you know, of just sharing this message of healing and love and empowerment all over the world. I mean, there's students all over the world who continue to learn from her. So that's another great story. Like that is the story that Theta Healing was born, was
Yeah.
forged from that
Mm.
story, right? And of course, I've had my own experiences of working with cancer. I have, I remember my first, my, I discovered, or let's put it this way, I learned about Theta Healing June 2008 and May 2008. By December, I had taken a course called Intuitive Anatomy, which is really, I mentioned it in the last Theta Talks, which is really learning about the body. And we did work on understanding how cancer gets created in the body and the emotional causes of that. And my first cancer client was in January.
Wow.
And I remember feeling completely out of my depth because this was cancer, you know, and I had definitely taken a lot of courses, but I didn't feel equipped to be able to do anything with cancer. But
It must
it
have
was,
seemed very scary
oh
to
my
you,
God.
right?
Yeah, because
Even
it's
at
like,
that time.
it's someone's life in your hands,
Yeah.
right? Ultimately. And my client at that time didn't speak English.
Mm.
Okay. She spoke Arabic, and her daughter had to translate, you know, the entire session when I was working with her. And what was so interesting about that session is that she was in a lot of pain. She was on the highest level of morphine because bone cancer is very
Yeah.
painful. She couldn't walk because one of her L3 basically had collapsed in spinal cord. And so she was on bed rest. She couldn't walk, and she was in immense amounts of pain. With, I think the level of morphine was 9. I think at that time it was the highest, or for that um, hospital, that was the highest they could give anybody.
Mm.
When I started working with her, the first thing I did was like, I walked in being like, I'm not going to try to heal the cancer. Let me just work. Let me start small. Let me work with the symptoms. You know, let me help her, like,
Feel
really,
better.
yeah,
Yeah.
feel better. Like,
Mm.
she was having issues with digestion, obviously, because of the medicines and the morphine also. She couldn't walk, as she said. She was always in pain. You know, there were a lot of like symptoms. And the first session, all I did was work on that. And by the second session, she had already commented and explained that she was feeling a lot better. The pain was less. So many things had improved that it gave me more confidence. Okay, we were able to do this
And
together. What's next? What's
was
next?
there a big gap between the first and the second?
I think it was about a week at that time.
Okay,
It
so not
wasn't.
even that
No,
long a gap, right?
no.
She could already feel relief
Yeah.
from that.
And
Mm.
I felt, you know, obviously my confidence was boosted
Yeah.
because I felt like I was making an
Yeah.
impact. And I was a very new and young healer. But what I did have was a lot of faith.
Mm.
I really, truly believed at that point that it could be healed. I didn't necessarily believe in myself, but I believed that Theta Healing had the power, had the ability to help this woman that I was working with. And what I think really helped us as well is my client had a very strong faith in God and the Creator.
Right.
She was very
Mm.
religious. And that really helped because that allowed me to feel very comfortable, you know, knowing that she had faith,
Yeah.
right? She believed that this was possible,
Yeah.
right? So it wasn't just me doing all the believing. I had her kind of buy into it as well.
Mm.
And I remember by the third or fourth session, this was, 2008. So, but I remember on the third or fourth session, her son advised me that even though she was feeling better, digestion was better, so all of those kind of things were better, at the end of the day, she still had cancer. It was advanced
Mm.
stages. And the doctors had basically said that because of her age and because of the location of the cancer, they couldn't do anything more for her. Surgery was too risky. She couldn't, with, I think it was the chemo didn't work, or she couldn't take any more of it. Like, they had done everything they could. And so they were moving her to a hospital a couple of hours away out of the city at that time. And it was a hospital, which is essentially like hospice. It's
Palliative
basically
care.
palliative
Yeah.
care, right? It's where
Mm-hmm.
you go when they can't do anything for you and
Yeah.
they just try to make your final days as comfortable as
Comfortable.
possible.
Mm.
And I remember just feeling really, feeling bad,
Yes.
feeling really just
Sinking in the
horrible.
stomach, I'm sure. Yeah.
But, the son told me, she still wants to see you and we'd like you to go see her.
Mm.
And he drove me there. It was a good, a good, I think, yeah, it was a couple of hours actually. And went to this hospital to see her. And I remember it was this big hospital and it was very busy. And there was just people all over the place. And the son left me with his mom because he had a meeting or something, right? So he just kind of left me there. So I did some work with his mom at the time, who was sleeping, but I sent her a lot of unconditional love, like whatever I could do without her verbal permission. And then when she woke, I continued to do healing. But in between that, I went looking for a doctor,
Mm.
her doctor. So I asked around, feeling a little intimidated, right? Because it is like a hospital, and who am I to be talking to any of these doctors? And I remember looking for her doctor, and it turns out to be an Indian guy. So I felt like a
Mm.
sigh of relief. Okay, he's my
Yeah.
culture, and maybe he'll talk to me. So I went up to him and I asked him, I told him, I introduced myself and I said, I'm here to help her. And, can you tell me a little bit more about the situation that she's in right now?
Right.
And of course, he started with all his medical jargon.
Mm.
And I tried to make sense of it, but I basically repeated back to him that what I understand is the cancer is in a part of her spinal cord which has collapsed. It So basically, in simple terms, her hips cannot carry
The
the top half of
weight of her
her
body.
body,
Yeah.
which is
Mm.
why she can't move. She can't get up. And so the hips cannot carry the weight of the upper body. That was number one. And number two, it was in such a delicate part of the body that any surgery could paralyze her for life
Yeah, of course.
anyways.
Hip. Yeah, I mean, a spine is already in
Yeah, so it
itself.
wasn't worth the
Yeah.
risk, because they were
Mm.
like, it's kind of like, if you're damned if you do and damned if you don't.
Mm.
So it was
Mm.
just kind of like the best case scenario at this point was just allow her to be pain free and as comfortable as possible. But in that, as he explained this to me and he validated what I got out of that conversation, I had this kind of, it was like an intuition, or this, I got directed in my mind that her body couldn't carry its weight, and
Mm.
there was an issue of not being able to support her upper body. And it
Right.
hit me that the entire issue in her life
Support.
boiled down to that, was
Yeah.
support. She didn't feel supported by her husband. Because I started to put the puzzle pieces, kind of came
Mm.
together. And I was like, she wasn't supported by her husband. She wasn't supported by her children because they grew up and had their own lives. So she understood that, but there was still a sense of like a lack of support there.
Yeah.
She wasn't supported by her
Mm.
mother-in-law and her sister-in-laws. So she really felt kind of alienated from that family. And in particular, her husband would never take her side against the mother-in-law and the sister-in-laws.
Right.
So that's why there was this sense of like, nobody supports me. And finally, when she gets cancer, it's like, wow, even God doesn't support me.
Wow.
And so that's exactly what I worked on with her when I went back to
Mm-hmm.
the room and she was awake. I started to work on this particular kind of, in Theta Healing, we call it, right, the bottom belief.
Yeah.
The kind of like the piece that breaks the whole, situation
Like
down. The
a
whole house of
Jenga. Boom.
cards
Yeah.
falls,
Yeah.
like, yeah, like
Yeah.
Jenga, that one piece that
Mm.
causes everything to fall. And that was the missing piece. And when I did the healing, I completed everything and then I went home and I had a trip planned. So I was out of town. I was taking some courses and so on. So I was out of town for 2 weeks. When I came back and checked back in with the son, can you imagine my surprise to find out that she had been taken out of that hospital? They
Wow.
had moved her home.
Mm.
Her cancer had gone into remission. Okay.
In 2 weeks. This was all in 2 weeks.
Yeah, 2 weeks. It was just like literally such a quick time. And I was just so excited to meet her, right? So I went to her house, which I'd never been to because I'd only seen her in a hospital. But I went to her house and she was wearing, I still remember, she was wearing this light pink bathrobe. And I remember it like visually because her skin was pink, like her cheeks had color.
Glowy. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it was the
Yeah.
first time I'd seen like her cheeks had color because every time I'd seen her, she'd been pale and like sickly and weak. And she had rosy cheeks. That's the word I'm looking for.
Wow.
And she was sitting on the couch. I walked into the apartment. It was the daughter's apartment. She was sitting on the couch and she gave me this huge smile. And then she had a walker
Mm.
and she stood up on the walker and
Wow.
she walked over to me.
Mm.
And she gave me the biggest hug ever. And I remember just like the feeling of joy that I had been able to be a part of that and to
Of
see that.
course.
Okay. So that was a huge turning point for me in my theta healing journey
And it was
because
the beginning,
it was the
right? And
beginning.
that was like, it's just the rest
History,
is, once you
you
see
know?
that, it is possible. And I think for a lot of people, they need to see it to believe it, right? Also. And
Absolutely.
so this story, it really validates that, you did work on her, this is what happened, and that she came out of it.
Yeah,
So it's a
absolutely.
beautiful story.
It was really a beautiful story. It was a beautiful point in my journey. It was this recognition, realization of what theta healing could do for someone. Okay? And
Mhm.
that was huge for me. But I don't want to only present like the,
Yeah.
the positive, the picture where everything worked out
Yeah.
because I have had clients where it hasn't always, ended up
Mm.
in that kind of situation. I did have a client actually who had a very rare cancer and he had about a month to live, a month or so to live
Mm.
when he when the family reached out. I think the family had been working on him to agree to have sessions, but the issue was he told them, I've already accepted my fate, like I've already accepted that I don't have much time to live, so what good is doing these healing sessions going to be?
Right.
So he was very reluctant to do
Mm.
any work. But upon like insistence of his wife and kids, he said, "All right, I'll do it for them."
Yeah.
So I remember that it was pretty much the end. He
Mm.
was very weak, and we did our first session where we talked a lot about what he had been carrying for a very long time, and it turns out that he had a very abusive father,
Okay.
very abusive, not just a normally abusive, but a very
Mm.
abusive, traumatic childhood. And his whole life, he had been carrying that hatred
Right.
towards his father. And even at that point in his life, he could still feel the anger and hatred towards his father.
Which type of cancer was this?
It was a very rare
Uh,
cancer. I can't remember.
okay, so would you remember in the part of the body? I'm just curious to know.
I honestly don't remember. I feel like it was somewhere around the
Mm-hmm.
appendix, um, digestive, somewhere
Right.
there, but I don't remember it. He had been traveling to different places to seek, they
Healing.
were
Yeah.
looking for that Hail Mary
Yeah.
treatment, tried different things, stem cell, all kinds of things, and nothing really worked. So he had basically like accepted his fate.
Yeah.
And so in this session, we worked a lot on these emotions. And we got to a point where I was exploring the idea of God with him,
Mm,
because our relationship with our Father is often mirrored in our relationship with God, the
yeah.
source, the creator. So if you have a not so great relationship with your father, often that can affect your relationship with the
Mm.
creator, where you don't trust God,
Or vice
where you feel like,
versa. Yeah.
yeah, or vice versa, but you feel like
Mm,
God is punishing you, or God
yeah.
is, doesn't care about you, doesn't love you, that kind of situation. So he had a very troubled relationship with God, didn't believe in him, you know, because if there was a God, how could all of the things in his life happen to him?
Happen.
So
Yeah.
there was definitely this whole, existential question in his life as well. But when I approached the God subject and I wanted to work on that, he shut down. He said
Yeah.
no. He just refused. He said, I don't want to work on
Yeah.
this. Sanaiyah, that's like, this is, at this point, I, he just kind of closed the
Mm,
doors. He didn't let me go further. He didn't want to talk further. And we were making progress with the father
right.
issue, that was forgiveness and, a lot of the lessons. But when we brought the whole God conversation in, he just shut down. And what happened after that is he didn't want to continue
Yeah.
with any sessions because he didn't want to deal with his relationship with God.
Yeah.
They did tell me, however, that after the session, he felt a lot better. His health was improving. Like the symptoms were improving. The cancer was still obviously there, but he died. He died a month later.
Mhm.
So there was nothing I could do at that point with that situation. So I've seen people heal, and I've seen people
Yeah.
turn around, and I've seen people go into
Yeah.
remission, and I've
Yeah.
seen the opposite, where I've seen people pass on, because ultimately these are choices that we make
And
in our life.
I had something similar, a similar experience to the last one where the kids told me to, can you work on my dad? And he had, I think, it for him it was colon cancer, if I wasn't mistaken. And I went in and I started talking to him and explaining to him how this works and how, and we started digging, right? So digging is the process of understanding, where is this actually coming from? And what happened was he said, I used to cheat on my wife a lot. I was very promiscuous. Okay. And now, because of that, this is why I feel or I know that I have this cancer,
Punishment.
which is the punishment. And for him, he said that I've accepted my fate too, because if I go through this means I have been forgiven and it's a clean slate and I can get to heaven, I can kind of move on. So even though I was explaining that idea, that concept that God is all forgiving, right? And that you don't have to hold this and we can heal, we can, forgive yourself and,
Because
God
the key
will
is the
forgive you.
lesson, right? The
Yeah.
key is the lesson.
Yeah.
He already has felt the guilt, right?
Correct.
He obviously repent. I'm going to use a very Catholic word, but was like
Mm, yeah.
repentant over what he did. He was feeling bad. He realized the consequences of his actions, and that should have been enough to allow
E-
him to heal, forgive,
Exactly.
and move on. But because of probably his upbringing and his ideas of punishment and how God would want him
Go
to kind of
through the
go through the
suffering
pain and
and
suffering.
overcome it, then
Yes.
that, to prove himself. So, I mean, I told him and gave him that option of kind of opening that topic up of understanding that God will forgive and all those kind of things. But he was also quite reluctant because for him, this is a guaranteed in his head that, if I had to go through this, then I will get to
Like
heaven
I'm
or I will
absolved.
be,
I'm absolved.
absolved,
Yeah.
so then I worked with, I said, I don't want to, I mean, we're not here to change anybody's beliefs or anything like that. And so it was more about making his stay more comfortable and, clearing and healing aspects of that so that his transition would be easier. to
You know,
move on to.
yeah, we can only do what someone will allow us to do. And
Yeah,
of course, we do explore, the understanding, and we do work with a little bit of that sort of back and forth to help people gain the understanding and the realizations and the lessons. But ultimately, we always respect, right?
of
How
course. Yeah,
ready they are to heal and how much they are willing to heal. So, free will is something we always respect. But one of the things I do want to talk about before we end today's IG Live session is the emotions that are connected to cancer,
mm,
right? That's a really important thing for us to
correct.
discuss. So, in my experience with cancer and my clients, the emotions, and this is of course also what we've been trained to see, but it's been validated by all the different cancer work
Studies.
I've done,
Yeah, yeah,
cancer
yeah.
work I've done, and it's like extreme hatred for
Mm,
someone else or self-loathing,
yeah.
extreme anger
Mm,
over something someone did to you, like a betrayal,
yeah.
or something that you don't agree with, something that causes a lot of anger.
Unfairness.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it has to persist for a really long time for it to
Mm,
become, a stage 4 cancer, for
yeah.
example. Resentment, grudges,
Even grief.
and grief and loneliness. I was
Yeah.
speaking with lung cancer.
Yeah.
Yeah. So of course each cancer has some specific emotions connected to it. But whenever I see like an advanced stage cancer,
Mm,
stage 4, or a rare cancer, one of those really like crazy, situations with cancer, I know there is either self-loathing,
right.
extreme anger, extreme sense of like resentment or grudge against
Mm,
someone, or betrayal. And it's usually with someone who you care about a lot. It's not
yeah.
a random person. It's not someone who's, inconsequential in your
Even
life, but someone
regret could
close
come
to you.
in too. Yeah,
Regret.
regret.
I don't know if have you seen regret in cancer?
I've seen people who are carrying regret from things that they can't change, and that kind of turns into
Oh yeah,
very,
I did. I did see actually recently a client, cancer, and it was, yes, there was regret over someone she had trusted for a very long time who left her. And there was a lot of regret in that situation. But the cancer was related to the betrayal of the
mm,
person, but she was carrying a lot of regret as well. So there are, some typical emotions that we do find where cancer is concerned. So this is
but
why,
even like with breast cancer, it's nurturing, right? Um, Not being able to or feel nurtured, or not being able to have that opportunity to nurture as well
yeah.
with the breast area.
Yeah.
I've seen that as
So
well.
different cancers,
Mm,
yes, for sure. But usually the emotions have persisted for a long time,
yeah,
right? For it to manifest or become cancer. So one of the things that we do in our theta healing classes is right off in the first class, in basic class, you're learning, right, to release your resentment, rejection, and regret type of emotions, because we know they really make you sick.
yeah,
They make the body really sick. So we work on a lot of these emotions in our theta healing classes, which is why students come into these classes from everywhere, because they realize they have all these emotions and baggage that they don't want to carry anymore, because they understand it's creating diseases in their body. It's creating, challenges in their life. It's really getting in the way of them living a happy, joyful, meaningful life.
absolutely.
But yeah. All right, we are at the top of the hour. Should we go into our virtue cards for today?
Yes, sounds good.
What do we have?
So today is wisdom.
Wisdom. What's that bringing up for you?
I think it's for me, it's more about waking up and realizing that we have all of these abilities and tools to be able um to change and shift things, you know. We have all the wisdom in the world that we're able to do this, but some of us don't take that step or that action towards it.
Yeah.
So for me, I think wisdom is really, really about opening ourselves up to understanding that the wisdom and the information is already there and already ours,
Yeah.
right? We just have to take that next step.
Yeah. So for me, when I was tuning into wisdom, what was coming up was we have the wisdom to know what are, it's like we have the wisdom to be able to decide for ourselves what steps we need to take to heal the aspects of our lives that are causing a lot of, discomfort, negative emotions, circling back over and over again to past events. Like, we need to have that wisdom, and we do if we allow ourselves to see it, that there are things in our life that are not working for us, and we must tune into that inner wisdom that tells us this is not right.
Yeah,
Right, this is not working for
that's
us.
our signal.
Yeah. So it's like listening to that inner wisdom that tells you this is not right. There's something wrong here. I need to change this. I need to get some help. I need to,
Yeah,
we have these moments of clarity where we really know
we
what,
wake up.
yeah, what to do. And it's just
So,
seeing the wisdom of that.
so to add on, I'm just going to read what's written here. Meanwhile, there's a question in the, if you want to read that. This is so if you get wisdom, this is a signal to use courage, kindness, truth, compassion, and wisdom in your decisions. The
Mm,
road has been challenging, but now the ability of wisdom makes it much easier for you to create your reality.
wow.
So,
And it kind of connects to something that I was trying to express, but wasn't really able to express a couple of minutes ago, was we all have the wisdom to make the choices for us that will get us to where we want to go.
yeah.
So you talked about the man with the cancer and felt like it was the punishment,
Mm,
for what he had done.
yes.
And was that his wisdom talking? Was that his, wisdom talking, or was that his ego? Was that his, you know,
Yeah.
more negative aspect?
Or
So,
fear,
or
right?
fear,
Yeah.
right? So we must have the wisdom to recognize that.
And another good one
It's
in here is with wisdom, you only have to remember it because we
beautiful.
know it all. You only have to remember
Yeah,
it.
we all have that inner wisdom.
Mm,
It's beautiful. That was just a great conversation, a little different from our usual
yeah, true.
back and forth type of theta talks. This was more about sort of sharing our stories with cancer, and I think that was a really nice
To
way to
honor. Yeah.
honor, yeah, the journey we have seen a lot of people take with cancer and theta healing. Next week we are doing psychic hygiene, right? Like, we're talking
So
about.
it's called vibe checks, actually. That's our new name for the vibe check. We're gonna have a vibe check
Okay,
um to kind of relate it to energies around us and how we can keep ourselves um in check
protected.
and the good vibes only, right?
Yes.
So
Oh, I like that. Okay, vibe check. So that's going to be our topic for next Tuesday. So tune in. We're going to be talking about energy aura, energy vampires, people who drain your energy, how to deal with negative energies around us or negative people, and how to stay positive through it all. So tune in. This is me, Sanaiyah, and Maisha signing off on Theta Talks
I
live.
think we have a
I
question,
didn't,
Sanaya.
I
If
couldn't see
oh,
it.
you couldn't see? Okay, so let me read it out to you, okay?
Okay. Okay.
So, what if it's a child below the age of 5 who has a rare type of cancer? Is it linked to the mother, her emotions, resentments, betrayal? What if a 5-year-old has cancer? Is it linked? Okay, so that was similar. It's basically repeated that question.
Yeah. So do you want to take this or
Go
I'll go ahead?
ahead, go ahead.
Okay. So normally when a child is under 8 years old, we do train our students, and we also kind of um, work this way where we work with the parents before the child, because up until age 8 the child is still forming their identity as separate from the parents, and more often than not they're reflecting the parent, one or the other or both, unresolved
Right,
issues. Now, most of the time when a child comes into this world before the age of 8 and they develop, either they're born into this world with some kind of physical challenge, or they have it during those first formative foundational years. It is really more about the challenge to the parents who have to deal with that. So in that sense, yes, I do think a lot of times it is something that is owned by one or both of the parents. Having said that, I have seen contractual agreements between like the soul of the child and the parent where it had a component that was, owned by the child. Like that
right.
experience was something the child also had
Shows.
to clear, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
in their own life. But we always start the healing almost with the parents first in that situation if they're under 8.
Mm,
Sometimes at like 7 or 8 years old, I'll work with the child, but usually younger than that, I don't necessarily work directly with the child until I've cleared the parents of their influences in the
mm,
situation. Having said that, I have kids that are under 8, and I work on them all the time with whatever's going on in their life. So as a parent, you could definitely work on children. As a healer, you could definitely work on children. But if you're working on a major disease or situation, I would always work with the parents first, because they're usually holding the child to the disease or the cancer or the situation. And if you don't deal with the parent stuff, you can't heal the child.
yeah. I think that was a great response.
Okay, we summed it all up. So go ahead, you do the closing now.
All right. So thank you guys for coming and showing up today. If you do want to know more, please connect with us and have an emotional breakthrough session where we can explore more of how we can help you in any area, whether it's a sickness, whether it's illness, whether it's even cancer, right? And how we can have an exploratory conversation and even some form of healing during those 20 minutes. So the link will be in below, and you can also connect with us through bit.ly backslash
Or, or
e
forward slash
forward slash I always get this one forward slash e hyphen b dot hyphen s.
or E
So
dash B
e
dash
dash.
S. Maisha speaks Australian English and I speak American English. So whichever one speaks to you, it's either E dash B dash S or E hyphen
Hyphen.
B hyphen S. But they're the same thing, and you can find it in the comments below.
Okay,
On that
cool.
note, have a
See you
wonderful,
guys.
wonderful evening, day. Lots of love, you guys. Bye bye.
Bye.